I'd like now to introduce our next speaker, Alex Lichtenstein.
A lawyer, a rabbi, and a nightclub owner walk into a bar. Actually, hold that thought. When you ask most little kids what they want to be when they grow up, they'll tend to say aspirational things like, I want to be a fireman. But apparently, I was a pretty weird little kid because for some reason, I had always wanted to be a lawyer. Good evening. My name is Alex Lichtenstein, and I apologize in advance for my sore throat. I was born in Vienna, Austria, on my parents' way to the US from the Ukraine, and I grew up in Brooklyn. Coming from the Soviet Union, my parents didn't really know anything about Judaism. But luckily, my mother became involved with the Center for Return, and so my parents sent me to Jewish day schools so I could learn about my Jewish heritage. I became observant in 8th grade, completely Shomer Shabbos. My parents eventually followed suit, and after graduating MTA high school, I went to Israel for a year to learn. I loved it so much that I really wanted to stay for Shana Bet, and at the time, I was serious about potentially pursuing smicha. But for various reasons, it didn't work out. So I came back and I started college, and I ended up getting really into nightlife. Initially, mostly for fun, but then very much so professionally. Monetarily, thank God I was successful. Business was great during college. So much so that when I was finishing undergrad, instead of going to law school, let alone getting smicha, I decided to open up my own nightclub. And although I certainly didn't know it at the time, the nightclub was down the street from the Millinery Center Synagogue. Suffice it to say, by that point, I was far from observant. And it wasn't because of any sort of philosophical or intellectual change. It just kind of happened. First, I started keeping my phone on Shabbos to talk to my non-Jewish girlfriend at the time. Then I kept on for work. Then I'd start going out for dinners, etc. And before I knew it, Yom Kippur was the extent of my Jewish observance. Fast forward to about 2 years ago, and I get a call from Refcon about a shul in my old neighborhood that I never knew existed. And I don't know how many of you knew about the shul before they started doing renovations, but it never really existed from my perspective. I must have passed by the building literally thousands of times, and never once did I think there was a shul there. Great job, by the way, on the renovation so far. So anyway, Refcon calls me and he asks me if I can help with a Minion. And even though at that time in my life, I wouldn't normally attend Minyanim, I thought, hey, you know, the rabbi called me personally, I feel weird saying no, but it's 10 minutes, right? What's the big deal? Little did I know, it was the first step in my coming back to Yiddishkeit. Next thing I knew, I was being set up in a chavrusa with Rav Yitzchak Friedman. And this was really my first plunge back into learning, which I had loved so much when I was younger. Before I knew it, I was putting on tefillin every day again. And the little things just started adding up into big things. Ben Zoma in the 4th parak of Pirkei Avos says, Schar mitzvah mitzvah, uschar avera avera. The reward for a mitzvah is another mitzvah, and the reward for a sin is another sin. And I can attest to that on both counts. Things really do become habitual. When I first started keeping Shabbos in 8th grade, not turning on the TV was so hard. In college, when I stopped keeping things, it was the same, but the opposite. It was really hard for me to turn on my phone the first time because I felt terrible after I did it. But soon enough, it seemed impossible not to keep my cell on during Shabbos. So I really want to give my sincerest thanks and gratitude to Refcon and Rav Friedman for what they have done for me through this shul. Thanks to you, I've had the opportunity to start on my way back. By just going to Minion that first time, the reward was the chavrusa, and so on. I truly look forward to seeing the Millinery Center Synagogue become the center for prayer, for learning, and for outreach that you envision. A place where countless other Jews will connect, or reconnect as I did, with their Judaism in the years to come. Thank you.